Hello, and welcome to the third sector. In our society, there are three sectors: the public, the private, and the nonprofit, and it's that third sector, the nonprofits, that we highlight on our show. My first guest is Amanda Wilson from JACY House. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you.
Tell us about JACY House. I know it's been around a while, but I have a feeling there are folks out there that don't know what you do.
Okay. JACY House is a child advocacy center focused on forensic interviewing when there are allegations of child abuse.
Okay, when you say forensic interviewing, tell us what that means in terms I can understand.
What it means is that we allow children ages 2 to 18 to come in and talk to a forensic interviewer that has highly trained skills to talk to a child in a way that's neutral, non-leading, to gather the information from the child about what they've experienced in a potential abuse situation. In a way that's friendly to the child, but also gathers that information without leading the child.
How do you do that? That seems like a really hard job.
It can be a difficult job, but I like to say that it's not myself that's gone through the abuse, it's the child. And if the child needs to come in and talk about that, I should be able to listen to anything they have to say if they're the ones that's having to share the experience that they had.
Now, I know a little bit about your program, and I know that you're not the only person there when these children come in. Can you talk to us about what this process would look like for the child? Who else is partnering with you on this, and how you gather this information?
Okay. The referrals come to our agency through the Department of Child Services or law enforcement. So when that report's called in that someone's concerned about the well-being of a child, then they will call us to set up a forensic interview. And we work with a multidisciplinary team, or what we call MDT. And that MDT consists of the Department of Child Services, the forensic interviewer, law enforcement, prosecutor's office. Sometimes CASAs or guardian ad litems will be part of that process depending on the circumstances. Within our agency, we also have advocates that will help the child and the family through the process. So we all work together to gather the information from the child in what we hope to be as few interviews as possible. We would prefer one interview, but sometimes it's more than that. But we want to interview the child as least number of times as possible, and then all of those people are involved so that then they don't have to go in and then re-interview the child over and over and over again.
So why is this important to videotape this statement from this child when the allegation is first known?
It's important to do that is for one, to cut down on the number of interviews the child has to have, because prior to child advocacy centers and the model that we use, the children were interviewed by whoever they reported to, and then say they reported at a school, they would tell maybe their teacher, their lunch person, and then they would take them to the office, and then they would have to tell someone else there, and then they would have to tell someone else, and then the decision would be made to call the Department of Child Services, and then that person would come in, and the child would just have to repeat what happened to them over and over and over, re-traumatizing that child. Also leading to the child's statement may not look as consistent because they're asked different types of questions by differently trained people. So it looks like it's harder for the child to look or to be consistent and to be, to share information. It's hard for adults to share information the same way, more than one time. So with that process, we try to cut down on the number of times that the child is interviewed. And it just helps by videotaping, then we don't have to interview them over and over.
And I believe I have heard you say on other occasions that it can take 2 or 3 years for a case to get through the court systems. So how does this videotape help in that way?
The way that process helps is that the forensic interview does not replace the child's testimony in court. Our legal system is set up so that the accused has the right to face their accuser. So whether that accuser is a 4-year-old or a 44-year-old, there is the legal process that child would have to testify in a court. But where the forensic interview comes into play is in that preparation process, gathering information about the crime or alleged crime that's happened, and then there have been cases that have gone through courts, even in our local courts, that the child, due to the trauma from the event, was not able to testify in court. So there was a process that was through It's a big legal process, and then that child's interview can come in to the court system as part of that testimony. There's still some other steps that have to happen, but that can be part of that process as well.
I would imagine it might also be good for the jury or the judge to see the actual age of that child when it first happened. I mean, if you're talking a 3-year-old versus a 6-year-old, there's quite a bit of difference between verbal skills, a willingness to consent or to even understand. Does that come into play at all?
It does, especially with the young ones, like you mentioned, the 3 to 6-year-old. There is a huge difference there. It's also very different when you have an 11-year-old young lady who then is 13 or 14 and looks like a young woman at that point on the stand. It helps the jury to see truly at that time of disclosure what that child, where they were in their development and those types of things. It also helps for the child to prepare for the court case as well. Sometimes they can review their own statements because a lot of time has passed, so they want to be able to do that.
Right. And I know it's important to have all of the information you can possibly have and to collect it while it's fresh in that young child's mind. I would imagine is very helpful for that child too.
It is, and many, many children do not disclose within the first few weeks of their abuse. Sometimes it takes children months to years before they disclose what's happened to them, because more than 90% of children are abused by someone that they know. So those relationships are very difficult to overcome for children because children depend on adults for everything. So when their abuser is someone that they depend on for their daily life, it's hard for them to speak out about what's happening to them because they depend on that person so much.
And more than just that child, the family as a victim. How do you come around that family and help those parents or grandparents or whomever is caring for that child to get through this process and to help that child get through this process?
That's where our advocates come into play. We have child and family advocates. We have a full-time and a part-time advocate at JACY House, and they can support the child and the family from the moment of the report. So when they come into our center, up to and through the completion of a trial. And part of that may be referrals to counseling services. It may be referrals to local services that they need for their family, whether it be food pantries or things like that. We also have a non-offender caregiver support group. So those parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles that are caring for the children after the disclosure, there's a support group that we offer for those families so that they can learn how to help themselves, then help the child. Those handbooks that were given when we have children kind of leaves that chapter out, how to deal with the dynamics, because many times, like I said, the alleged perpetrator is someone within the family. So a lot of things change in that family when the disclosure happens.
I can understand that, yes. I know you have other programs besides just this. Tell us in the last few minutes of our program here, what else do you do to help prevent child abuse?
We have 2 programs, one for children, one for adults. The child's program is called Speak Up, Be Safe. It's a program that we teach pre-K through 12th grade. And it teaches 5 body safety rules. It empowers kids to speak up if they feel uncomfortable about interaction with whether it's other adults or teenagers or things like that. But that program lies heavily on the fact that it's the adult's job to keep kids safe. There's things that kids can do to let us know when they feel uncomfortable or when someone touches them in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable. In our body safety rules, it teaches them that it's okay to say no. Empowers kids that even if somebody is a close friend or a family member, you can say no to a hug. You can say no to anything that feels uncomfortable to you. But it also lets the children know that it's the adult's job, and you need to find safe adults that you can talk to. And we have them list the kids list the names of safe adults that they can talk to. Whether it be their family or a teacher or a bus driver or a coach, those types of things. The adult program is called Stewards of Children, and it teaches the adults what the true issue of sexual abuse is. It lies just on sexual abuse. The Speak Up, Be Safe program is for physical abuse, neglect, all types of sexual abuse, those types of things. But the Stewards of Children program teaches adults what the true issue is, how we can prevent it, how we can put things in place to keep not only our own children but our community safe, and then what to do if you ever suspect child abuse, how to make those reports, those types of things.
We've got just a couple minutes left. I know that there are no charges for your services, but it still takes money to run this agency. Tell us how we can help financially, or do you need volunteers? How can the public help JACY House?
Yes, all of our services are free, and the main services, our forensic interviewing, are covered by state and federal grants. We're able to be supported that way. But all of our body safety programs for adults and for children are funded through community dollars. So always donations help hugely. We have organizations that donate items to our center, whether it be snacks for the kids when they're at the center, toys for the kids to play with at the center, or stuffed animals to take home. We have a huge amount of stuffed animals right now, but I'm never going to turn away a donation. So we do that. But just in general, those community dollars are huge for our organization. But we're always looking for volunteers, whether it be just to join our Prevent Child Abuse Council, which is now called, it used to be called Prevent Child Abuse, it's now called Wayne County Kids First. We love to have volunteers for that program, as well as whether it just be someone to donate time to come and help clean windows or things like that. So
There's always a
open to any
need,
of that,
isn't
yes.
there? Amanda, I wish your organization didn't have to exist, but I am so grateful that you and your staff are there for the kids. As a mother and a grandmother, it means so much to me to know that there is someone that is advocating for our children, and I appreciate what you do in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you for being a guest today, and your information was running along the bottom of the screen, but give us one more time how they can get in contact with you if they'd like to help.
All of our information is on our website, jchouse.org. All of our programming, the information about Speak Up, Be Safe, information about the Stewards of Children classes that are free to the community, all of our contact information is there.
All right. Thank you for being with us today.
All right, thank you.
We'll be right back with more of the Third Sector. Welcome back to the Third Sector. We've changed guests now, and I have two representatives from Hope House, Guy Gutherie and Whitney Mays. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Tell us about Hope House.
Hope House is a homeless shelter, and it's also a recovery program. We've been around for about 17 years now. The homeless shelter opens every day at 4 o'clock. We serve all men from 18 on up. And our drug and alcohol program goes for 4 to 6 months. The guys actually live there. We're a shelter, we feed, we give out clothing and hygiene needs, and it's just everybody's like a family there.
So tell us about the two components. You've got the homeless shelter. Who can come and stay at that shelter?
The homeless shelter is for any man 18 and up from Wayne County, but of course other times we have transits come in, or people who come from other counties that get stuck here or other states, and the men come in. We open the doors at 4 o'clock. We give them a good hot meal. They're able to shower and get clothing, all their essential needs, and then they leave every day. So they can stay every day of the week. Every holiday we're open 365 days a year, and just there to serve the public. Only cases where you wouldn't be, if you were suicidal, or certain medications you can't come in with, that you can't be there if you're on certain medications, since we have a drug and alcohol program. But basically, we rarely ever turn anyone away. Our drug and alcohol program is a 4 to 6 month residential program. The guys actually leave there. It's for Wayne County. We have surrounding counties that come, and sometime from different states. The guys are in classes all day. We have random drug testing. We have a therapist that's on site. We even have an art class from some teachers at IU East. We done picked up an art class. They really enjoy that. Relapse prevention. We have Bible studies. We have a variety of classes. And we also have people, I think it's Aspire. They come in and do testing for anything that the guys might have in their blood. And so, but both programs, they dwell together in the evenings. You might see them playing ping pong, watching movies, reading papers, playing cards. If you ever was to walk in there, you wouldn't know who was who because we just treat everybody like family.
I think that's one of the things that impresses me most about your program. You know the guys by name, you know their needs, and you're always welcoming to
Yes.
them. I guess, you know, drug and alcohol abuse and addiction can be a horrible thing. I don't personally suffer from that, and am so grateful, but I can't imagine their life where they, you know, are homeless at this point and needing that help.
And ages are getting, like I said, much younger. So I've been really talking to a lot of parents now, so who comes out and we talk about their sons passing, and it's really, and they've been like meeting with the guys just to heal themselves, and the guys have been talking to the mothers and the mothers to the guys. So I think that we're really branching out in different areas that we didn't even think we'd be branching out in because the need is so great now. So.
You mentioned that during the day the residents would be taking classes. What kind of classes would they take? How does that program look for them?
Well, the classes they take is every morning they get up, they do a little chore, they have meditation, then we start our classes. We have something called 12 Steps of Recovery, and it's the curriculum from, I think it's Arkansas. Yeah, Arkansas.
Recovery
And
Works in
Recovery
Arkansas.
Works, yes, and so they have classes where they have testing, they have to take tests, they read the book, they have to study, they have to memorize maps and memorize a whole host of different things. They have tests on Fridays, so, and it's like the total 12 steps. Each step they have a writing, synopsis, and tests that they have to go through all day. Then they break, and they go to a soup kitchen for lunch, and come back and continue classes till about 3 o'clock, but that's every day, Monday through Friday.
So would it be similar to AA that we hear about and in the 12-step program that they have?
Yes, the curriculum is based on the 12 steps of AA.
Okay, okay.
And NA.
All right. Guy, as a board member, what do you see as the great value of Hope House for this community?
There are at least three things that I generally want to make sure that our clients recognize. And one is that they're not in a position to become sober on their own. And so reaching out to the Hope House, and by doing that, the skills that they learn there and the values that they learn there creates within them the ability to deal with their future life as an addict. Because it never goes away. You just learn how to deal with it. So the first thing is the value system that it creates. The second thing is the value system it creates among men. And she's been alluding to this in terms of the work that you see the guys doing in the evening when you have both the shelter and the program fellows interacting among themselves. These are kinds of skills that the guys have to learn, because when they go out in their life in the future, they have to find ways of dealing with people that are not addicts. And to many of them, their life, especially the one part of it that they can remember, has been living with other addicts. And so now we're sending them into an environment where they are learning how to deal with those that are not. And so the skill sets that brings to people is important for them to learn. And the third part, most of the guys who come to us have gotten to the point of burning their bridges. And I mean, they have burnt all the bridges that were ever an option in their life. And so when we get them, they are stressed not just because of their daily environment, but they see no future. They don't understand where they can go in order to be able to become something of value. And so we try to provide the immediate bridge for comfort while we have them, and then as you go through the other parts of the program, including the mentor, the halfway house, and all the other kinds of things that we add as you get closer to graduation, the specialized classes in living skills, those are designed specifically so that when they leave, they've got a way of reaching into their future rather than trying to live a life day by day. Those are the three things that, from the board side, I see are important.
Well, I was just going to say that a part of recovery is accountability and
Yeah.
discipline. That's a big part of Hope
That's all
House.
part of it.
There's certain things that they might see as a little silly rule, like you have to go to bed a certain time, you have to get up, but that's going to prepare you for the work world, you know. And have to clean up. So we expect excellence on everything you do, and it's really like teaching them how to do things all over again. You know, it's just like the child, because they've been out there so long, they've been undisciplined. So, and we do it with love. So it's like having children almost. But then watching them grow and transform is a beautiful part. So
Oh, I would imagine.
it's just wonderful.
The men do a lot of that work themselves through a function we call community, which is a twice a week meeting of everybody that's there. And if any of the audience or any of us were at the Hope House at the time community is called, we're included.
Accountability.
And during that time, they do a lot of mundane things, like who's got the wash responsibility with the washer-dryer system for the week. But they also have a part of it where there's accountability for missteps that might have occurred in the course of the week, and that guys begin to learn that accountability starts with themselves, and so they end up having to speak on the topic as an individual to the others, and that becomes the way of accounting for your own personal.
And what kind of success rate are you seeing with your program?
Well, with the heroin epidemic and the pill epidemic, it's not as great as I would like to see it. Our success rate has went down some since the crack epidemic, because heroin and pain pills and the meth now is just off the chain, and our numbers aren't as high as they used to be. We used to be like up in the 20s. I think we average from 10 to 13 now, because we're total abstinence. Everybody's wanting some Suboxone or some maintenance drugs. So
Vivitrol
and different things, and we're not against that. It's not for everybody, but our program chooses to do abstinence. But the ones that I'm seeing, I think, are more of a success rate, because the guys that are really riding it out mentally and physically and getting a change of their mindset and psychic other than just putting a pill. So I'm seeing a long-term success rate, you know. The guys are staying and completing, but I've been there 17 years now. Now I had a guy that showed up, I think it was 3 weeks ago. Because when they go away and they're gone, I don't know if they've passed away or not. So to see him come back, one came back, he'd been sober 12 years. He had a business.
Amazing.
Oh, man, I was just so happy. He was repairing motorcycles in Cincinnati. One came back, he's a chef now, and these are long terms. And years ago, I never did see that, you know. For them to say I've been sober. One's a minister now in Dayton, Ohio. He's been sober 11 and a half years. And like I said, for them to go away, and I wonder about them. So when they come in there, I kind of cry. And when they come in, they cry. They said, you thought I was dead, didn't you, Miss Whitney? You know, and they bring their families and pictures of their babies. So I see our numbers are down, but the long-term success rate of them, their sobriety is much better now.
And those are wonderful
Those
stories.
are just wonderful,
That's
wonderful
what you're
stories.
looking
That's
for in
what
the program.
I'm looking for.
Yes.
It's not quantity is quality,
Yes.
quality of life. So
Well, we are almost out of time, and I know there's a very important thing we need to talk about. This doesn't come cheap. How are you supported, and how can the folks that are watching today help you?
okay, that's your part.
Well, she's going to lead that part of it to me.
Talks finances.
Our annualized budget runs about $130,000, and outside of, well, in practical terms, we don't receive any federal or state funding. So it's all either institutions, organizations, businesses, or individuals. Those are the four areas that we generate income from. We've had a good home at the state hospital grounds. They've been a help.
Wonderful.
And quite a few other organizations assist in a lot of different ways. But for the most part, it's a community event. We recognize that. And so that's why we try to make sure that when we are offering these services, that the community and any of the individuals who have a need for it are the first in line to to be our clients.
So if folks are listening, in the last 30 seconds, how can they give?
The best route, in simple terms, is through our website, which is going to flash across the bottom of the screen. And under the Support and Partners area, there is a PayPal button, and that is usually the best route to follow. Beyond that, simply send a donation to the Hope House. Or I would also recommend, if you're interested in a little larger donation, give a call to the Hope House Direct and ask about some of the other benefits that we have, because we have NAP credits, which occasionally I think you've talked about, and the matching fund, if we are asked to participate this year, will be coming up down the road. So these are options that exist to assist and to generate support for the Hope House.
Super. Thank you both for being
Thank
here. Our
you.
time always is just so short, but I appreciate all that you do in the community. I know it's a labor of love, but it also has to tug on your heartstrings
does. It
sometimes.
It does.
So thank you for what
you
you
for
do,
having
and thank
us.
you for being here today.
Okay, our pleasures.
And thank you for joining us today for The Third Sector.